Guys, it just feels good to be back. And what better way to celebrate that than reviewing the sequel to the Merc with a Mouth, Deadpool 2. 2 years ago in mid-February, 2 days from Valentine's Day, the first Deadpool came out and it took the world by storm. We're talking about box office records for an R-rated movie, a film that was featured in many top 10 best lists, and Deadpool was the movie that finally got Ryan Reynolds' career back on track to play the character that he always was meant to play, Deadpool himself. Mostly because he was very passionate about the project and the character, and mostly because in his career he had to be known for playing a superhero movie other than, well, Green Lantern. Now, after the immense success of the first Deadpool, they finally came out with a sequel to Deadpool, known as Deadpool 2. However, there was a few changes to this movie before it came out, specifically directing-wise. Instead of Tim Miller doing the project, like he did with the first one, the directing rights went over to David Leitch, who has done John Wick 1 and 2, and Atomic Blonde. So, what's the result of Deadpool 2? What did I personally think about it? Well, like always, let's talk about the plot. In this movie, Ryan Reynolds once again has surprised his role as the hysterical Merc with a Mouth, Deadpool. And what's going on in this movie is that Deadpool really is desperately looking for a character arc to have, rather than just being a two-dimensional clown who constantly breaks the fourth wall every now and again. But then things take an interesting turn in the story when the film introduces Josh Brolin, who plays Cable, a cybernetic soldier from the future who wants to avenge his family because they've been killed by a very mysterious villain. And he suspects that a young teenager named Fire Fist, who has the will to be a Pyromancer, is the reason behind his wife and daughter's murder. But Deadpool sees this kid and he finds out that there is really more to this kid than anything. That he's not just a kid wanting to harm people. So Deadpool decides to protect this kid away from Cable by uniting a team known as X-Force. It may look like the symbol for Wonder Woman or Wakanda Forever, but we're just gonna stick with X-Force. And so it's up to Deadpool's job to protect this kid away from Cable. Now, given the plot synopsis, you're mostly thinking to yourself, wow, that's actually kinda unoriginal, uninspiring, and kinda formulaic. And to a certain monumental degree, it really is. Mostly the reason why it's so unoriginal or completely formulaic and generic is mostly because this is the same type of paint-by-numbers sequel plot that we have seen from every other movie, especially from ones like Terminator 2 Judgment Day. An anti-hero who is trying to save a young kid away from a dangerous futuristic soldier, or in other cases, another enemy, or just movies that really feature an extensively long manhunt. And when I was watching the movie, I was thinking to myself, okay, maybe they're just making fun of that kind of storyline from Terminator 2. And at points, they kinda do. At other points, they kinda take it seriously. And I'm not saying that it's bad whatsoever that they're really taking this kind of storyline seriously. But the whole thing about this story is that it completely struggles with predictability. Mostly not only because of the whole premise of it all, but mainly because of certain events in the movie, including the outcome. Sure, it does take some unique twists and turns, but by the end of it, it's nothing highly original about the story. So, now that I've gotten the completely long complaint out of the way, I would still like to say to all of you guys that Deadpool 2 is still one of the most fun and hilarious and action-packed movies I've seen all year. Is it as good as the first one? Not by a long shot. But does it have some positives to spare? Yes, it does. Once again, as I said before in my previous Deadpool review, Ryan Reynolds is 100% Deadpool and is completely dedicated to his role. His mannerisms, his jokes, his fourth wall breaks completely match along with Deadpool's character. But not only is Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool completely funny on the hilarious kind, but very good at the dramatic side of things, exclusively because of certain events that happened in his life. I am incredibly happy that Ryan Reynolds is still proving that he's still got it with the character, proving to everybody that he's just not phoning it in because it's a sequel. Along with Ryan Reynolds, the other supporting characters that were in the original do a very functional job as well. So with that being said, let's introduce new characters into the series. The first one being Josh Brolin as Cable. I really like Josh Brolin. I think his performances in Infinity War and other movies like No Country for Old Men are absolutely amazing, and I think as the Cybernetic Super-Soldier Cable, he does a very good job with it. The problem that Cable runs into is mainly that he's not that interesting of a character. Mainly because I wish his character was given a little bit more development rather than just explaining his backstory, which that in and of itself is kinda generic. But what the script has going for Josh Brolin is his camaraderie with other characters, especially Deadpool. There's this one part where they're talking to each other while they're fighting, and there was one line that Cable said that I was like, Cable, you earn my respects. Also, Zazie Beetz is a very nice addition to the characters as Domino. Not only because of her performance, which is very good, but character-wise, she's really cool. Mainly because her superpowers are basically the ability of being lucky. Whatever Domino does is really executed and timed perfectly. And I do have to say that some of the moments that have to do with very well-timed execution is really good. Also, the kid in this movie who I've seen in Hunt for the Wilder People, he does a good job, but along with Cable, he has a problem that he runs into. There are some instances where the movie spends a lot of the time with Deadpool and this little kid forming a kind of friendship between them, and for some moments it was pretty difficult having to buy these kind of people being formed as friends. I don't know whether they didn't have enough development, or they just needed anything to progress their friendship, or just character development, but it was something that just could have bettered the character. Not to mention that at points he kinda does deliver some truly cringeworthy lines. Now in this movie, it's supposed to deliver its various amounts of humor in it. And is this movie funny? Yes, it is. At points. Now don't get me wrong, some of the jokes really do work in this movie and they do genuinely make you laugh. At some parts, it's just nothing more than just chuckle-worthy. Or at other points where they just don't completely land at all. I don't know whether it's completely ad-lib, mostly because Ryan Reynolds is credited as a writer, but I would have enjoyed it if some of the jokes were performed and pretty much written better. Now David Leitch is also known for creating very good action sequences with movies like John Wick and John Wick Chapter 2. And in this movie, I think David Leitch does a very credible job making the action sequences in Deadpool 2. I mean, some of the action scenes aren't remotely as cool as, like, say, something as Deadpool versus Ajax in the first one, but for what it's worth, they were shot well, they're choreographed well, and they function very well in the story. Now, with the first one being incredibly cheap and having some very good visual effects, the second one does have its fair share of good visual effects. For example, there's this one character that comes into the movie and his entire character is CG'd. However, I can't say that it doesn't look as remotely as bad as, let's say, the final fight scene in Black Panther or anything in Justice League. But the vast majority of the visual effects in Deadpool, they look pretty spot on. But I do have to say that when you watch this movie, there's some really obvious green screen compositing and a very obvious CG character. Overall, guys, I still had a lot of fun with Deadpool 2. Do I think it's remotely as good as the first one? No, but I still think it's a worthwhile time at the movies that you guys should have a good time with. Ryan Reynolds is hilarious as Deadpool. The other cast of characters do really good as well. The chemistry that they have and the jokes that they do have are genuinely funny, while also having some very delightful action sequences. The movie does suffer from being completely generic in its paint-by-number sequel plot. Most of the jokes either don't land or some of them are just chuckle-worthy, and not to mention some of the mixed bag CGI work. Now, before I grade this movie, I do have to say that Deadpool 2 has one of the best post-credit scenes I've ever seen in my life. You'll see what I mean when you see the movie. Deadpool 2 is an absolute blast that you're gonna have with theaters despite its flaws. And that, everybody, is why I am giving Deadpool 2 a 4 out of 5. Alright guys, that is my review of Deadpool 2. Comment below, let me know what you thought about this movie. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And also, if you would like to see more reviews like this, be sure to subscribe for more. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.